council work session of Monday, May 11th. Ms. McKay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey. Here. Mayor Pons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Here.
Ms. Kernshire.
Here.
Okay, thank you. That leads us now to item 3, items for City Council meeting of May 14th. Ms.
Thank
DeWitt?
you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. For your meeting, May 14th, this Thursday, we have a matter of special privilege, which annually May is Business Appreciation Month, so you will award your Business Appreciation Award. Then approval of the council minutes, and then we have public hearings. The first two are a zoning text amendment and a special use permit for an escape room to be located on Strawberry Plains. The third one is a public hearing for a zoning text amendment to make our zoning ordinance chapter about the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act to match the state code requirements. Next, you have a long-term special event license agreement, a request from Visit Williamsburg to place a 250th commemoration selfie, I was going to say statue, but selfie, station, that's the word, selfie station in the library plaza here by the fountain that will be there through the end. They're asking for it to be there through the end of the calendar year to celebrate the 250th, and that is beyond the scope of the city manager's approval, so it needs to be addressed by city council. And then we have a resolution to amend the city budget for this fiscal year to add revenue and expenses and make appropriations and reappropriations. Then we move into our reports. We'll have a monthly financial statement. Since the Business Appreciation Award is given at the beginning of the meeting, we will not have an operating report. Then we'll have open forum, no unfinished business. Under new business, we have a handful of items. First is a contract with AV Adventure Productions for year-round events. Then we have a resolution authorizing the city to participate in the Virginia Main Street program at the state level. Then consideration of a grant with WRT for the comprehensive plan work for the city. Then a purchase order for design services for the Public Works facility. Also, a request of approval for water treatment chemicals contract for the water treatment plant. We have a tourism promotion contingency fund request from Let Freedom Ring for a Juneteenth event for the soft launch of the African American Heritage Trail. And then you have a resolution to reappoint a member to the Board of Equalization. And then you may have some other appointments of boards and commissions, and that's the agenda.
Good, thank you. Any questions for Mr. DeWitt? All right, leads us now into public comments, and I do have a number of speakers cards, and the first one I have is Ms. Amy Quirk. Welcome. Just state your name and address for the record and keep your comments to about 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Amy Quirk. I live at 502 Newport Avenue. And I'm here today in part as a resident and in part as a leader of the Navigators, which is an alternative scouting group. And I want to let you know that there are some of our members of our group that I'm going to speak with you speak to you shortly. And I am here primarily with this group to speak to the importance of a new library. And I've been thinking about this question a lot over the debate over the past few months, and thinking about it as our Navigators troop has done a number of activities that I think kind of speaks to this question. Most recently, yesterday, our group learned about the American Disabilities Act, and we visited the public library to think about those issues, and I'm going to leave it to the kids to explain to you what they found. But another thing that we've done recently is we took a tour of the new police station, And it was a fantastic tour. It's an amazing facility. There were 2 officers that were extremely generous with their time and to answer all of our questions. And what really struck me about that tour was the way in which that new police station represents a vision for the future. We all can agree that old police station is very tiny, very cramped, did not meet our current needs as a community. The new police station is a facility that goes beyond our current needs and thinks about where our community is going to go, right? It thinks about where we might be in 20 years, in 40 years, in 60 years. It thinks about, I was very impressed with how thoughtfully the city and the department had considered how our community's needs for public safety, for community inclusivity were going to change, and that we would have different needs and different aspirations, that our community was going to grow, and that this was a facility that could go the distance. And that really resonated with me when I think about the library. Our current library does not meet our community's current needs. There are all kinds of problems with a challenging and inefficient layout, with ADA compliance issues. There's very little flexible meeting and program spaces. It does not really have the capacity to support the current computer and computer literacy needs of our community. And I think that as with the police station, we need to approach these problems with a vision for the future. This is not a building that can be simply renovated to solve these many problems, just like no one thought that the police station could be renovated to solve our problems. And so I really encourage you to move towards a new library, one that is going to take us forward, that's going to envision our future needs, that's going to support our library staff, as they're already doing incredible work to try to offer the very best programming for our entire community. Of course, the library is an institution that really supports people from every corner of our community, and that's why it's so important. So please support a library that will take us forward and serve not just our needs now, but the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker's card I have is Aldo Culp. Welcome.
I'm Aldo Kaup, and I am a city resident who is 10 years old. I'm here to advocate for a new library. There are two major problems that I would like to address. First, our library is not compliant with the American Disabilities Act. Over the weekend, me and several other children went and evaluated the library for ADA compliance. We certainly found a lack of it. The elevator was too small for the average wheelchair and was unable to be used without assistance. Some of the aisles were not quite wide enough, and many were too tall to access from a disabled standpoint. There were several ramps and inclines that were too steep, including the ramp from the children's area to the adult area and the incline in the theater. Several areas were largely inaccessible, such as stage access in the theater and the second floor. Just imagine you're a performer in a wheelchair. You figure you can just go onto the stage for your show with all the other performers. Then you realize there is no wheelchair access. Someone tells you that you have to go all the way outside, around the building, and then past the dumpsters to go to the back entrance, where then you still have to ask someone to get you a ramp so you can get into the building. How would you feel? Furthermore, I think we need a new library because our current library does not have enough space to host programs for ages 8 to 12. In our current library, there are toys for younger kids in the play area, and the maker space is available when you turn 13. But 8 to 12-year-olds don't have any dedicated space to expand their interests. This discourages many kids of these ages from going to the library. I personally know kids who have been discouraged from reading and going to the library because of the lack of activities and opportunities. A new library with more space would enable spaces for said age group and enable more programming and opportunities. If we had this new library, it would encourage 8 to 12-year-olds to come to the library, check out books, read books, and expand their knowledge. You have heard my case, and I hope you take it into consideration and vote to build a new library and a new generation.
Thank you. Next speaker's card I have is Yujuan. I hope I said that correctly. Welcome.
My name is Ujan, and yesterday we visited the library and saw if it was ADA compliant. Spoiler, it was not. the ramps were too steep, and and there were stairs, and the elevator did not fit a wheelchair. And if you were a performer, you would have to go through the back, through the dumpsters. That's not nice.
Thank you. Now I have Carmen and Kian. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Cameron. I'm a resident from Williamsburg. Today, I would like to tell you why I think we should have a new library. Our current library is not accessible for everyone. We need to make it easier for people with disabilities to move around and get places easily. The slope should be under 1.2 inches. The space in between the shelves should be over 36 inches. The shelves should be under 38 inches tall. The elevator should be wide enough for a wheelchair to get through. And there should be more seats in the theater for people with disabilities. There should also be a ramp leading up to the stage. This is why we need a new library. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello there.
My name is Kian. I think the library should be available for everybody, even if they're in a wheelchair.
All right, thank you. All right, the next card I have is Mr. Wilson. Sorry about that. No? Okay. All right. Mr. John Whitley. Tough act to follow, John.
Excuse
Tough act to follow.
Listen, they said it all. Thank you, thank you. It was beautiful, powerful. Let me try. Mayor Pons and members of the City Council, I am Dr. John Whitley, 110 Governor Berkeley Road, Williamsburg. Today, I'm here to ask you to enact full funding for the complete new library complex. Nothing piecemeal, the complete package, the full Monty. I stand before you to acknowledge your authority as council and to exert the absolute responsibility and strict accountability placed upon me as a citizen. While you are held by statutes of law for your behaviors and performance, you are held by your personal ethics, your moral imperatives also. With this, to ensure your decisions represent the well-being of all constituents, communities, and contingencies. As the body collect, you have, when faced with present demands and future expectations, responded responsibly and accountably to facilitate our growth and maintain our stability. You have been a worthy partner of the mighty three: town, gown, and crown. The city, the College of William and Mary, and Colonial Williamsburg Foundation. As recent construction has confirmed, our public safety departments, fire and police, have been provided state-of-the-art environments capable of attending the needs of constituents, communities, and contingencies for years to come. Our Williamsburg Regional Library deserves to be rendered whole and complete as prescribed by the insights of the creators of the plans, treated with the same level of commitment afforded public safety and guided by the moral imperatives held by each of you. Please, nothing piecemeal, the complete and total package, the full Monty. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker's card I have is Dr. Cranbill. Good afternoon and welcome.
You. So, David Cranbuell, 201 Harrison Avenue. I have some, what I consider to be very encouraging comments, positive comments about the recent actions of you and our new city manager. We are in a process of recovering from, I won't speak as strongly as I have in some of my emails, but a very depressing and in many ways destructive decade or so of leadership in the city manager's office, and I consider all 5 of you to be victims of that and abused by that, because it would have taken somebody with a lot of, I don't know, just ability to rein him in from the very ways in which he managed all of us and abused us with controlling all the information and making decisions by himself. Now, in that regard, we have a wonderful step that Jack Reed did. I had mentioned that there was ugly mold and on the front of the already ugliest building in the whole city, our water tower, which has now bared itself after 80 years of careful planning by our previous city council people way back in the 20s and 30s, with a forest between that water tower and Lafayette Street. So, but he power washed it, and it looks terrific. It almost looks like it's repainted, which he told me would have cost tens of thousands of dollars. So thank you for doing that. At least it's a clean, sort of a giant wall between Lafayette Street and the railroad tracks with small trees, which way past my lifetime will eventually block it. Second thing, I thank Michelle for, I wrote, and it's somewhat therapeutic at times, how strongly and negatively I felt about the past, and she provided a lot of information and some things that need improvement. And I also thank Stacy and for listening to things that I'm concerned about. Now, you all saw the meeting which you endorsed, where we met in an open town meeting. That was terrific. And then in a 4th step, you postponed the budget. So I ask a couple things. I don't know if I saw the right budget. I got it from a neighbor, but I pointed out some things with how things were budgeted for, like the CDR and money that I thought better spent elsewhere. I'd like somewhere, or Michelle or somebody, to at least send me and others to know a site where we can actually see the current budget as proposed by the city manager. The second thing I'd like to propose and ask is that as you start to make amendments to it, I'd like you to send to us what you're changing so that we have chance to talk to each of you about terrific or tweak it a little bit this way or that way so we can participate. In terms of actual stands, I think we should postpone and not spend $600,000 on something that has always been done within the Planning Commission and the Planning and the Planning Department. That is a push of something that was totally initiated by our previous city manager. I'd like us to not fund the 14 positions because our previous city manager bloated his department with enormous growth, has been pointed out by our previous city manager. Postpone, i.e. do not fund them this year. It doesn't mean we shouldn't fund them. It means we should have a serious analysis of how we could retrain people to accomplish what they're supposed to do, and then reassess next year which position should be filled. I'd like all of that money, which amount to about $1 million, to be paid down towards reducing the amount of money we're going to borrow. And that would save us millions when you take the net interest on that. And finally, I'd like, in terms of a budget to be presented by the city manager and you, is where is the money that we're going to have to spend and we want to spend, like the police station and the library, I'm all for those expenditures, on the Blayton building and that property and totally redoing it. It's been talked about for years. We have to pay funds to get the money, pay for taking over the land from the government, and then we have to spend a large amount of money to redo it in the way we want. And that's a huge expenditure. And if we're honest, we should have that built into our budget process. And I thank you for everything you're doing, and keep your spirits up. And I know some of us, including myself, speak strongly, and I apologize in advance for myself and the rest of us, but you know, we're emotionally very impatient, but looking forward to the progress of recovering and returning to Williamsburg as having an historically positive taxpayer resident participating in its democracy. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker's card I have is Randy Casey Rutland.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just talk a minute about what we want in our community here. You know, we're a relatively small community. I don't know any communities our size that have the Queen of England visiting twice. Prince Charles, dignitaries from all over the world. We have students from all over the world, all over the United States, yearning to come to college, the College of William and Mary, University of William and Mary. We have international visitors coming to Colonial Williamsburg. We have a truly remarkable small community here. And I think we should be proud of that. I'm proud of that. I expect we're all proud of that. So what does it take to make a small community? I mean, much of what we talk about when we talk about money and spending and plans for the future, thank you, children, very much, thank you, is what is it in community that's important to us? What makes our community special? And I will assure you that the Queen of England, when visiting, and parents sending their children to college, and international visitors from coming to visit the best museum, the largest outdoor museum in the world, and some of the best artifacts preserved, none of those people remark on our low tax rate, right? Not a one of them. We are here, we are in this community, we live here because we have good schools, because we have a police department that, by golly, knows how to handle drunk college students on a weekend, and the Queen of England. I don't know of any small-town police department that has to deal with that range of people. That's really amazing. 98% of the college students are great. Well, 97, maybe 96. But there are a few exceptions. You know, I don't know, we have a fire department here that has to handle a large campus and historical artifacts, as well as coal and chemical trains running through our community. We don't get well-prepared police or fire for free. We want a lively community. We need a great library to go along with it. The current library, as we well know, is not adequate. The cost of maintaining it is going to go up. It doesn't serve the needs of the community as it is. It, too, is an important part of our community, an essential part of what brings people here together and helps us live together. I can think of no better thing for our community for the police to not answer a single call over the next year. I think that'd be great. I can think of nothing better for our community for the fire department not to answer a single call over the next community. That would be great. Our library has thousands of visitors every week. We have, between the two buildings currently, about 10,000 visitors a week into the libraries. 10,000 people coming to find community, to learn about our community, to learn about themselves, to find resources, to be inspired, to be with children. It's a great place. So I encourage you, as I think we all want you to do, to make the difficult decisions about what makes our community a lively, vital, important place for us all to live. And the library is an essential part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker's card I have is Brent Kopp.
Hi, Brent Kopp, 502 Newport Avenue. I'm a city resident and a bicycle commuter, and I'm here to express my support and hope that City Council will continue to support efforts to expand bicycle infrastructure in the city of Williamsburg, in particular the Virginia Capitol Trail expansion and Trail 757. You know, I bike to work every day. My two kids bike to school every day. I also do various errands around town, and I support the expansion of all these trails and all bicycle infrastructure. And I do so for a number of reasons. The first one, I think that expanding these trails will actually help the city of Williamsburg to achieve its 15-minute city plan, which is talked about over the past year. Second, I think the expansion of both these trails will actually make the city of Williamsburg a bicycle tourist hotspot in some ways. People will be able to come from both sides, from Richmond all the way down the peninsula to Williamsburg and boost tourism here for bicycle purposes. And, third, and perhaps most importantly, the Berkeley to Berkeley expansion on the Virginia Capitol Trail will really enhance safety for both pedestrians, bicyclists, as well as cars. On Strawberry Plains, currently, the bike lane there is very narrow. There's often leaf litter and stuff like that there, so having an off-road bicycle path there will make it safer for everybody involved, and in particular for the students who bike to Berkeley every day and along that route. So that's all I have to say. I hope you'll continue to support bicycle infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, no? So that concludes my speaker's card. Anybody else like to come forward? Okay, seeing, yes, sir. Welcome. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name's Cole Fairbanks. I'm a homeowner and resident and landlord at 111 Matoka Court. I'm also a Williamsburg native and spent quite a bit of time in New York, worked for a lot of CFOs, which I can attribute to a wonderful professor I had at the William Mary School of Business named John Strong. He taught us in forms of stories and cases. We studied a lot of businesses from Bed Bath & Beyond to Under Armour, airlines, and one of my personal favorites, which was a family-owned lumberyard. And all of his cases kind of had a theme or a quote at the end of it. And in this case, with the lumberyard, the particular quote was the theme was that this lumberyard looked great on paper. It had revenue growth. It had a good customer demand base, and all of a sudden it went under. And he had told us that this was the perfect example of a business that wasn't going broke, but that was growing broke. And I look at the current budget, and I see a lot of similarities. I see revenue growth projections that are based on future growth and assessment values, refinancing, and unrealized revenue on capital outlays projects that are not completed yet, such as the sports complex. And I see, when you really dig into the financial metrics, I see this gap between what is a healthy operational financial metric for the city of Williamsburg and what is and what taxpayers can reasonably and comfortably afford in terms of the tax burden. And so what I'd like to ask City Council, if it's within your power, is to consider adding financial metrics to the current budget cycle and maybe future fiscal years, and maybe even incorporate it into the future strategic planning. Metrics like, for instance, debt per taxable parcel and not per capita. From my limited knowledge, I know that, for instance, when it comes to our credit rating, Davenport has said that our credit rating is based on total population. But I think there's flaws in this logic because our population is heavily skewed towards students and renters and doesn't reflect the actual household taxpayers that are ultimately responsible for servicing this debt and this renewed debt service that we're talking about adding to our balance sheet. Another one would be assessments. I think assessments is a big topic. Revenue specifically tied to assessments and what that looks like past, present, and future, and what that'll look like with increased debt service. And the last one, and potentially the most important, is the actual dollar amount of tax burden for taxable parcels, not per capita, not per population, but real estate tax, personal property tax, water and sewer, fees, and hospitality tax if it's for businesses, and what that dollar amount looks like today and what that dollar amount looks like tomorrow with increased debt service. And I think that if you can add metrics like these are just three, but there's probably a lot more. I think it's going to contribute to better conversations, more intelligent conversations, more productive conversations in planning commissions, in meetings like these, that are going to, I think, ease my neighbors, my family, and my own worries that the city, as we grow and we take on more debt, may be inadvertently growing broke. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward?
Great.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is David Black. I live at 134 Hunting Cove. I'm a relatively new resident of Williamsburg. I've moved here 2 years ago, in part because I was attracted by the low real estate tax, having moved from Fairfax County. And one of the things that I noticed when I first came was, of course, all of the wonderful things that Williamsburg has to offer. Both my boys went to William and Mary. That's one of the reasons I came here. And when I came to the library, I thought, this is wonderful. My goodness, the bathrooms are clean, the rugs aren't frayed. There are all of these facilities and services. And now I hear that we need a new library? I'm astonished, frankly. And now I hear from the previous speaker, I don't know much about budgets, and I haven't looked at it carefully, but I would exhort you all to avoid incurring future debt to pay for a building whose need is, at least from my perspective, at least tenuous. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Sabrina Fairbanks, 119 Berkeley Lane in Walnut Hills. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to make one last pitch and have you reconsider allocating the almost $600,000 for a comprehensive plan consultant. It's my understanding that that number has dropped down to $575,000, but that didn't make me feel better, so I thought I would come and speak to you today about it. It's been noted that our employee count has really gone up much faster at a higher rate than our population, our tax-paying household and businesses have gone up. So I question whether or not we need to hire outside consultants for this project and others. I see this professional service category in the budget in the different departments. You know, I think one was $90,000. But in terms of the planning department, what's changed? It seems like there's less work. I reached out to the Planning Commission about why their meeting is canceled this month. It's because they don't have any work. Nobody's coming forward with any projects. So in effect, there's less of a workload. So, and we've added a full-time employee with a diploma and the knowledge base to help our planning director with this. So we've increased our staff. We have the staff to do it. Our former city manager was quoted in the paper that our director was hired, and this was going to be part of her responsibility, was updating the comprehensive plan. So what changed? Here's consensus of the community is that we had a former city manager who was intent on increasing density and height and completely changing the downtown to match a 2017 study. And we've got to ask ourselves, why do we want to use an old study, a study that is older than our current comprehensive plan? And, you know, we don't even know if those people live here anymore, who filled it out. But I think it's also important to know that that plan was introduced at the last comprehensive plan update, and it was rejected by the Planning Commission. Apparently, they took a few things out of it that they liked, but for the most part, they thought it was inappropriate for Williamsburg. So it is a mystery as to why we're bringing it back. York County is larger than we are. They're balking at a $400,000 consultant that I read in the Williamsburg Independent. And so I want to make another point here. I can see, I know we've spent a lot of time, I know several of you were on the selection committee and are going to vote on this comprehensive plan firm on Thursday. I can see why they were attractive to our former city manager who wants high density. It looks from their website that this firm builds 3 to 5 story buildings. Their designs are very urban, walkable designs. I'm wondering where they're going to stay because it's a Pennsylvania firm, and is this part of the fee is, you know, are they staying here? Because they're going to have to be here often. So are we paying for hotel rooms? It looks like they do a lot of planning, of area planning. So they're taking sections of a city, and I didn't see much evidence of them doing comprehensive plans for small cities, entire small cities like ours. It looks like they do more area planning. And that caught my attention because at the Planning Commission meeting last month, we were told that they want to make another change to the comp plan process to look at specific areas and do those chapters and get them approved before the rest of the plan. And when I spoke to council, I said, you know, if I was writing a book, I wouldn't publish one chapter, you know, and not all of it at once. That's what makes it comprehensive. And last, I would just like to say, $575,000 is going to lead to more of a financial burden on the 4,363 tax-paying households and businesses. And if we have staff and the ability to do it ourselves, let's do it in-house. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Oh, great.
Welcome.
The opportunity for another bite at the apple.
All right.
Robert
I don't
Wilson,
follow those folks either.
22 The Palisades. So, good afternoon. I'll generally speak to address the issue of the city's debt and future annual debt payments. My analysis largely relies on the data in Davenport's report to the city dated February 13th, 2026. In the city's capital improvement plan, it contains the following statement. Revenues of the CIP fund are derived from the 1% sales tax that is collected and distributed monthly by the state. All taxable purchases in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia are charged at the rate of 6%, 1% of which is returned to localities by law. It has been the policy of the City Council for over 30 years to use this revenue to fund general capital projects in the city. Examples of projects completed with the use of these funds are schools, municipal buildings, land acquisition, roads, vehicles, and equipment. However, this City Council has shredded this policy over the past 5 years, proposing to increase city debt from $15 million to over $143 million, with over $260 million in debt service payments, including the proposed library and water system spending and a pro rata portion of the regional sports center debt. So here's how it breaks down. Page 40 of the Davenport report shows that after adding the $26 million in proposed debt for the library, total tax-supported debt will be over $72 million, on which we will pay a total of $130 million with interest through 2055. Davenport estimated the total cost of the library debt at over $52 million. You will recall that I was roundly criticized for suggesting this figure last year. But that's not all our debt. Page 37 of the Davenport report shows current utility debt is $11.3 million, on which they disclose will ultimately pay $22 million with interest. And the city is planning to spend another $16.6 million on the water system, which I estimate will ultimately cost over $28 million with interest. We also have financed fire equipment using lease purchase agreements for another $2.7 million. Annual debt payments and all of this will be about $6 million by fiscal 2028. But that's not all. We're missing a major piece. On page 19 of the Davenport report, it states it did not include the $64 million in bonds and $15 million in notes of the Historic Area Regional Facilities Authority related to the regional sports facility. The city has entered into a support agreement, a financing agreement with the HTRFA to pledge the annual payment of 64% of this debt, or at least $2.5 million annually. In fact, this year, we paid $2.5 million plus another $586,000 in maintenance support. Why isn't the $2.5 million annually of the pro rate of $41 million of HTRF debt included in Davenport's calculations? The city will say it's not a debt of the city, but an appropriation pledge. This is disingenuous, because if the city doesn't pay it, the HTFA will default on the debt and go bankrupt. This would negatively impact the city's credit rating. Here's what Standard & Poor's had to say about this. Annual payments by Williamsburg, responsible for 64% of the debt service to the authority pursuant to a support agreement and subject to appropriation, secure the authority's recreational facility revenue bonds. If revenue received from the authority from the participating members is insufficient for full debt service payments, Williamsburg has agreed to consider supplemental appropriation to satisfy the deficiency. If the city fails to make any such appropriation, Williamsburg will add the appropriation to the annual deficiency amount for the city's next fiscal year. Therefore, we consider these obligations as an appropriation pledge of the city. We believe the city has the willingness and ability to make debt service payments regardless of any deficiencies from participating members. You know, including the city's proportionate share of the HTFR debt and annual debt service changes virtually all the metrics presented in the Davenport report. For the worse, total debt will be $143 million. Annual debt service payments will exceed $8 million by fiscal year 2028. So I think a number of citizens are concerned that if real estate assessments drop to the 1% or 2% range, the city will need to raise the real estate tax considerably to make ends meet. But the value of a 1 cent increase in the rate only generates $350,000 in added revenue. So major increases in the rate could be required. That's why so many citizens are concerned about the increased spending and increased levels of debt. Maybe it's a sign of the political times we're living, you know, that we can borrow and satisfy everything that we want. But I would hope we take a pause and consider some of the financial implications. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public comments and we'll move on to background presentations. And first, we have a presentation and discussion concerning the FY27 proposed budget. Ms. DeWitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So today I'm going to do a presentation that covers changes in the proposed budget since April 9th when it was presented here. And these changes result from discussions with the 5 of you, also with members of the public and input during the past month. So just to remind you, our budget process for each budget is a little bit longer than a year, so they actually overlap with the next budget, and we are in the public review budget adoption portion of that. So the fiscal year 27 proposed budget still includes no change to the real estate tax rate. It remains at 62 cents per hundred, and a $7 water rate increase from $6.89 to fund the utility fund. So those remain, but now I want to dive into a few of the changes that we've made since April 9th. So we've considered 4 areas. One is the full-time equivalent FTE changes, the proposed budget and what we're proposing now. We've looked at operational efficiencies, and I thank all the department heads for all of their work on this. We also have pending real estate assessment appeals. And then I wanted to talk about capital priorities that you discussed at your meeting last month. So we start with the employees, the proposed FTEs. I will mention we're still proposing 1 new employee in the utility fund to be funded through that fund. So that is not on this slide, but I wanted to make that clear. This slide and the following couple of slides are going to be about the general fund. So when we look at the general fund, we're proposing reducing the proposed number of FTEs from 13 to 7.5. And you can see those that remain here on the slide. When you total this up, it's an expenditure reduction of $346,000. Operational efficiencies, as I said, we looked through all the departments and the general fund cost and found identified $370,000 in operational efficiencies. If you add this to the reduction in the FTEs, that's a total savings of $716,000. But something that's coming up is we have 2 remaining commercial real estate appeals that are going to our Board of Equalization. And the Board of Equalization will meet on June 23rd, so we will not know the results of that meeting ahead of adopting the budget. But we are looking at what is our exposure there. And the 2 commercial appeals, our exposure could be a reduction in real estate tax revenue of $232,000. So taking that into consideration, we remain $484,000 in in reductions in the general fund expenditures, and staff is proposing that we increase our transfer to the capital improvement plan with these funds. And I'll dive into that, but this stems from your discussion last month and public input about priorities in the capital improvement plan. So this will be I'm going to be talking about 2 fiscal years here, so bear with me. So I'm going to start with the African American Heritage Trail. So we need more funding to complete this project. So proposing that part of the savings from the FTE reductions and the operational efficiencies be moved over to the African American Heritage Trail in the CIP for fiscal year 27 to bring that revenue up to what we need to complete that trail by the end of this calendar year. But I want to step back and talk about this current fiscal year 26, because last month we discussed priorities and capital improvement plan, and one of them was the HVAC system at Quarter Path, which serves as our emergency shelter. And so we have, in February of this year, signed an agreement with William & Mary for them to contribute $500,000 towards the cost of our new fire truck. That money was received in February, and so that we're asking City Council to reappropriate that officially this Thursday, and that makes $500,000 available in sales tax funds in the capital improvement plan this fiscal year. We're proposing that that be used to pay for the HVAC system needs at Quarter Path. And the other item we talked about last month was the Prince George parking garage repairs, and a need to do those repairs, specifically with visitation increasing. It's already increased, but it's going to continue to increase throughout this summer and into the fall. So we have identified in the fiscal year 26, in the current budget carry forwards in the CIP, we've identified $500,000 that will not be of savings on the projects you see listed there that can be used for the Prince George parking garage. Again, this has been advertised and will be on your agenda for Thursday. The one project you don't see on here that still warrants discussion would be the bollards on Duke of Gloucester Street, and I have another slide to talk about that. We're suggesting that be placed in the fiscal year 28 budget. So that gets into a few more CIP discussions today. We did look through the budget, and we had 2 items, the Waller Mill Training Facility and the Library Regional Partner revenue that I'm proposing be removed from the CIP. They were appropriated in past years, but the Waller Mill Training Facility is not going to be able to move forward with grant funds. So that we're suggesting that be removed. And then the $4 million in partner revenue for the library is an unknown at this point, so suggesting that that be removed. If those funds materialize, they can certainly be, the budget can be amended by you and added back in. So those are past year items. In this current year, we had 2 projects we really looked into that were, when they were proposed, there was hope that there would be grant funding for those projects. One is the Duke of Gloucester Street Bollard project. That grant funding is no longer available. So we are proposing to move that to fiscal year 28, with the understanding that if we find revenue from another grant source or any other source, you could amend your budget and bring that back to happen sooner. Same with the Trail 757. This was budgeted in the proposed budget at $3.5 million. It looks like $2 million will be available through grants, but the $1.5 million we had hoped to receive from the General Assembly through a budget amendment did not materialize. So we're suggesting that portion of the Trail 757 be also moved to fiscal year '28. Again, if it materializes, we can move the project forward through a budget amendment. So the next steps, we have scheduled a special meeting of the City Council on May 27th. That gives us a few more weeks to keep diving in and looking for operational efficiencies and discussing things with the public and council. And we have public hearing or comments today, as you heard, and have another opportunity on the agenda, and as well as this Thursday. Also want to remind you, as I said, we're continuing to evaluate project and operational costs. We are without a state budget. Still some questions about regional partnerships, but this is not necessarily unusual, and this has happened before, but we do have that charter deadline of June 1st for you to adopt the budget. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, before I do that, Jimmy Sanderson with Davenport has come today to talk to us about debt capacity. He's done so a handful of times in the past year, but was gracious enough to come again today. Here's Jimmy.
Thank you, Mr. Witt. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. I thought I'd just hit on a couple things to remind you and the audience what we've done before. In particular, I wanted to point out that you do an annual budget that we did in February, I believe, or maybe it was January, and we walk through where we see the city. It's a pretty important thing, and you've done it historically every year. I think that's something that we should continue to do going forward. And also last year, we came back and talked about debt too, and where you stood and what things looked like. We did find at the retreat, again, you were structurally balanced. That's great. You built up reserves that you had over the years. You're in a much better position than you were before. And again, the debt, we looked at your policies. You're in compliance with all your policies. One of the things that we point out is you have a couple different buckets of debt, right? You've got what we call tax-supported debt, and that's debt that's obligations of the city, but you also have utility debt. And utility debt, we look at and make sure that it's self-supporting. If it's not self-supporting, the rating agencies will count it against your general debt policies, but yours is self-supporting, and that debt doesn't count against your policies. Now, the utilities have some separate guidelines too that we talked about as well. We want to have certain coverage levels, we want to have certain reserves, and so that's important as well. When we look at our specific policies for debt, we have two things in particular. It's debt to assessed value, a taxable assessed value, pretty standard policy that local governments have. And then we also look at debt service to expenditures. Those are our two governors that we have. And the debt service to expenditures is there just to make sure that that debt component isn't an overly large portion of your annual budget, because if there are problems, and there have been problems in the past, that's a fixed cost. You can't cut that. That can't be part of your budget cuts if you ever need them in the future. So we look at those very carefully, and the rating agencies look at them carefully too. One of the other things that we do is we plan in for your future debt, right? So we talked about we are taking on a lot of projects, and that's because we haven't taken them on for a number of years in the past, and these are large projects. And so when we talk to the rating agencies, we not only talk to them about the specific project that we're there for at the time, we also lay out what your debt's going to be going forward. So the last specific conversation we had with the rating agencies and the city of Williamsburg, we noted the potential for the library debt as well. And so that was important, and we actually layered in that potential debt service into your ongoing debt service, and to see how you would do against your policies as well there. And so the rating agencies took that all into account when they did your ratings. And I'll remind you that S&P has you rated at AAA. That's the highest credit rating you can have. And Moody's has you rated at AA1, which is one notch below AAA as well. A lot of that, the limitation with Moody's is your size, frankly. You can't get to that AAA level and be a smaller city. The other thing we talked about is specifically debt capacity. That's your policies, but debt affordability is there too. And that's to make sure that we present to you what the impact of that future debt would look like. And we've done this over a number of years. And my memory was it was 4 to 5 pennies, I think, was the tax equivalent impact that all of these projects would have on the city in the future. And so our job is in particular to make sure that you have the information to make decisions on your debt, make sure we're within our policies. I think the other thing I wanted to point out was, going forward, when you all look at your budgets, one of the things that the rating agencies give a lot of credit to you for is that you do look at your budget on a monthly basis, right? So Barbara's giving you reports where you stand versus your budgets. That's extremely helpful if there is a downturn, because you're able to react more quickly than if you were to just get a report at the end of the year and you just say at the end of the fiscal year, we're short by X dollars. And a lot of our local governments that are the higher rated ones are looking at it on a monthly basis so they can make adjustments if they need to. Happy to answer any other questions, though, about your policies or your capacity.
No questions. I would just like to thank Jimmy and David Rose from Davenport for coming to our budget retreats, coming to our meetings, and providing us with professional expertise and information. I know I, as an individual, rely on professionals, whether it be financial services, medical, legal, and so I value that this city council also recognizes the importance of having professional information provided to us.
Thank you. I would agree.
Not a question, just one of the things that you state, I try to reemphasize even at the budget retreat every year, is when you talk about that 5-cent tax equivalent, doesn't mean that it's a 5-cent tax increase.
That's correct.
It's however we get there through, hopefully with increased revenues, so there's not any type of real estate tax increase. But I think it's important because when you if you pick up your report and look at that and it says estimated 5 cent, that people's minds automatically go to a tax increase.
That's right.
As does mine. So I just think it's something to make sure everybody's clear on.
That's correct.
Current Chair?
Yes, thank you. So I think that, one thing that through the Davenport report from February and through, every time you all come, we really do talk about the strategy with respect to different, as you would say, like areas of the debt, utility versus like general fund, and I'm just wondering if you could explain, in your professional expertise, like why do we do it that way? Like why do we separate things out instead of sort of like glomming it all together? Right. And what is the strategy and what is the professional thinking behind why it matters to look at where things come from versus kind of putting everything together?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I'd answer it with, when we talk about tax-supported debt, right? So that's getting paid from a certain set of taxes, and in particular, it's going to be, personal property is going to be real estate taxes. When we convert things to help pay for it, we think that's a very good way, transparent way for people to think about a penny impact, both at the council level, but also the citizens as well. And that's the source of revenue that you're going to pay that debt from, right? And it's supporting the general parts of your city budget. When we look at utility credits or debt, whether it's water, wastewater, parking, any type of revenue that's specific for that type of debt, we carve that off and look at it over here because that's the revenue that's supporting that debt. When we talk about self-supporting utility funds, that's what we try to make sure that the revenues of that fund cover their expenses, including debt service. And if it's self-supporting, then it shouldn't be covered by the ongoing tax revenue of the city. So that's the distinction. And again, whether it's a water, sewer, parking, it could be all kinds of different funds, but you want to look at them and make sure they're actually paying for their expenses through their specific revenues.
And what you also do is you look at how we've performed historically. No different than, a business balance sheet and income statement. You look at where your sales are growing or declining and look for trends. And I think Davenport's been working with the city for 30 plus years now. But beyond that, we have a historic trend that shows escalations in assessments, escalation in sales, whether it's lodging, dining, other BPOL taxes and those types of things. And so you use that as kind of a caliber when you're looking at what kind of debt we can pay moving forward. Is that correct?
That's right. And I mean, you look at, we've talked also about your willingness to pay, right? And that's one thing that the rating agencies focus on too. It's your ability and your willingness to actually pay. And you look at the city's real estate tax rates. I think we pointed it out probably in that August meeting. I mean, you are the lowest city real estate tax rate in the state. And when you look regionally, you're at the lower end if you're including counties as well. So that is great for the citizens, one, but from my perspective and a credit perspective, you have headroom if you need to. If there were a bump in the night, something goes wrong, you're still providing a service to your citizens at a very, very low interest rate or real estate tax rate. I'm from the city of Richmond, and our tax rate is much, I think it's double yours.
Well, and as we've often said, we are fortunate to have tourists come to visit and provide tax revenue through, their spending when they're here as well, as in addition with students and families at William and Mary. So we have not all of the burden from the real estate tax assessment.
And I think back to some of my time on council, and even back before that, when we had the Great Recession, and that caused the city to have to adjust how Pat was with us as a fire chief, and we had to make some layoffs and have some tough decisions. And then again, we were faced with some challenges during the pandemic. Bumps in the roads may happen, there's no question about it, but part of what we do with our policy is to maintain at least 35% cash reserves to help us through those challenging times. I think our cash reserves are now at about 52%. Barb, is that about right? Yeah. So I just think that's important. You can't predict the future hurdles. There are going to be some, but I think when you look at us historically, we're very sound in our planning. So good. That's just a comment, I guess. Well, thank you, Mr. Sanderson.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Question for.
All right. Well, yeah, we can go back and talk a little bit about what Michelle has presented, if you want to kick it off.
Yeah, just obviously a number of changes, but the question I had was how will these changes be for the citizens? How will they be posted online? How will it be communicated to them so that those that aren't watching today or here can see the changes that have been made thus far?
Absolutely. So this presentation is posted online, and before your adoption of the budget on May 27th, we'll do a reconciliation sheet that will show line by line changes that have been made before you consider adoption.
So how will the proposed budget that's online, how will that be updated?
So it will be updated through another document. So the 464-page budget will not be amended line by line, but there will be a document that will identify what page and what line the changes will happen.
Okay.
And that will all be posted online. We're also happy emails and phone calls as well.
Thank you.
Well, and I just want to, thank staff for combing through everything and making the adjustments to the CIP. I know that we have spent a lot of time as a council talking about the number of FTEs. I think we've landed at a good spot. I hear comments about, our population hasn't changed, but the number of employees has changed. And I was reminded the other day that, some of us may have been alive, but when there was an emergency, a fire emergency or a police emergency, the operator would answer the phone over here, hit the light or hit the siren on the water tower that was pretty much right where we are now, and that was the way we notified our emergency folks. But expectations of the community have changed. I think about some of the traumatic injuries that we've had on our roadways, and if we didn't have the men and women who are well-trained, well-equipped to get out and do all that they can to make sure that lives are saved, we'd be a different community. And to go back, I think, would be a mistake. You know, the training that our police force goes through to make sure that we're equipped to deal with mental health crisis and all sorts of things is much different than it was 20 years ago, and that requires more people. And I think our community deserves, you know, that type of effort to make sure that we're a great place to live. So, you know, while our number of staffs are growing, I think it's important to recognize that the benefit to our residents is far superior than if we hadn't had them. So, while adding some folks to our staff does increase expense, I think they're justified. We had our department heads come and talk about these positions, and you know, each of them were very important. I'm also reminded, Mark from our fire department spoke at NCW the other day and talked about the mobile integrated health. And one of the comments was, wow, we need 3 of you. And right now we only have 1. And so they do a lot of good work. And when the department heads come in and ask for additional staff, yeah, I'm looking at Chief Snyder there, and I almost don't want to make eye contact, because we didn't support in this proposed budget. I mean, it could change, but we have eliminated 3 of the folks in the fire, and that comes with a cost. And we need to be aware of that, and hopefully, and I'm confident that the men and women that we do have on staff will do everything they can to protect our property and our lives. But, you know, not funding those 3 new firefighters and EMTs, you know, there's a consequence to that. And so, while we can't do it all, I think we're trying to make every effort to do that. Some of the savings, you know, you point out and reallocating to some other priority projects. I applaud you for, you know, doing that. I think supporting the African American Heritage Trail is important. That's a promise and a commitment that we made to the community, and I'd like to see that get done. The HVAC at Quarter Path, I think, is an important fix that we need to make, because that is our shelter, and it serves a purpose. Prince George parking garage, I think, needs repair, but I had a little conversation with Ms. Kern-Shear and talking about bollards, and thank you, Michelle, for bringing that up. You know, as I sat here and thought about it, that's important too. I mean, you think about the amount of traffic that goes through College Corner. Just takes a little veer off the road, and you know, we'll be needing our firefighters and EMTs there, and that's pretty dangerous. And so, I'd like to do everything. I would like to get the bollards done. You know, I'd welcome some discussion on priorities from my other colleagues on council, but I just wanted to make some of those points and observations. So I'll turn it back over to whoever wants to go next.
Just want to thank you, Mr. Witt, for all the work, and as we continue to work through this budget, there's always difficult decisions. I think last year we cut $9 million out of the CIP budget, which was almost unheard of in local government. So as we continue to look at this and find, not just looking at it to make cuts, but what's the best use of the money that we have, as you pointed out with some of these other projects. And the bollards is a good example of, you know, all the projects are important. And then you look at a parking garage. Maybe some people think that the parking garage needs a new paint job, and maybe others really don't care that it's just a parking garage. So again, I look forward to that discussion as well. But I think it's important that we all sit up here trying to, we're cognizant of the taxes and the low number of people we have that contribute to real estate tax, and we try to keep all of that in mind. But also as we try to get things done that make Williamsburg the special place it is. So I'm sure there'll be more changes to the budget moving forward, but there's a lot of work that's gone into it thus far, and I know we pledge to keep working as well as you and all the staff does as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say a few things. Like, first, to start with, a huge thank you for the work that's been done thus far. I mean, the fact that I know that Ms. Hutton has worked so hard with the department heads to really dig in and look very deeply, and that's work that is important, that we should be doing, and identifying those places where you'll really have to do some soul searching about, do we really need this now? Is this a need or a want? Is there something we can cut away? And I hope that those who are watching and listening see that this time since we've last met has really been spent digging deeply into this budget, and I appreciate that very much. I think that one thing we talk about FTEs and growth of employees, the underlying assumption is that it was right to start with, right? So that where we started from was appropriately sized. And that's an assumption, and that may be accurate, but I think that we need to recognize that when we talk about, is this too much growth? Well, where are you starting from? And did departments have the support that they needed, when the number was much lower? And I think that again, that is a debate one can have, but I kind of hear a lot about how we've grown too much, and I was like, well, that depends on where you're starting from, and was it right sized to begin with? And so there could be some departments that maybe didn't have enough people for the work that they were doing at a certain time. And so there was, maybe many years where they didn't get employees that they needed, and then they did. And then that growth, again, that is not waste, that is needed to make our city the way we want it to be. So I just did want to kind of articulate that assumption that I think is held a lot when we have these discussions. But that being said, over the last several weeks, having the work being done to really think about the number of FTEs, and I'm sure that those conversations will be ongoing, and so this is not the end, right? We are still working on this, but I think this progress has been really thoughtful, and it has been really intentional, and it has been deep, and it has been very, very serious in the work that we are doing up here with this budget. About the projects, yes, I do really think that the bollards are important as a safety measure, and I know we have to make decisions and set priorities, and conversations will continue to be ongoing about priorities. But when we think about how, what can we do to make sure that our community and everyone who lives here and visits here is safe, I do think that the bollards are an important safety measure that we have been talking about for a while, and it seems that you may be able to get funding for it after something unfortunate has happened, and I would rather be proactive, and so nothing unfortunate does happen in our community, and we actually do the thing where we're getting out in front of a problem instead of responding to a problem. But I understand there are so many important aspects of what we're trying to do, and I think that also underscores the work that this is. It's a giant game of the whack-a-mole. You may solve one problem, but this one over here pops up, or you're constantly trying to keep everything in balance. And so these are valuable conversations that we're having, and these are conversations that we're really having in good faith with amongst ourselves, with the staff, and with members of the community. So I have been very appreciative of how much feedback we've been getting from the community, and it's really, I think, heightened the level of conversation, the amount of work that we're doing. So I invite that to continue, and just again thank the staff so much for how deeply they've been digging in and trying to keep progress moving forward in a way that we can all be proud of.
And I don't have much more to add other than an additional thanks to Michelle and all of the staff and the department heads for their work. And I think what Stacy said was something I hadn't thought about, is where was our starting point when we, look at the growth in some of these departments. And one thing just with police, some of the record keeping, the recording, everything they have to do now that they didn't have to do 5, 10, 15 years ago is another reason for looking at the number of positions there. So thank you for bringing that point forward.
So I would like to also extend my thanks to everyone who has provided input through emails, coming to council meetings during this budget process. The budget process is always a work in progress, especially, from the very beginning. Michelle did a wonderful job at outlining the long timeline that we have that culminates to what we adopt in a couple of weeks. So thank you for everyone for coming out, and thank you to staff as well for really working line by line. I want to highlight the savings that was identified within our operational efficiencies, because that takes work, that takes time to meet with the different departments and identify those savings. So thank you for your work within that too. And I want to echo with what Ms. Crenshier had said. I would like to see personally as well more of an emphasis on ways where we could supply funding for the bollards, especially when we think of safety, especially in a year where we have the 250th coming up and the events that will be going on, especially in that region of the city. So just looking at ways within the next week or so that we can make that a funding priority.
Just wanted to add one thing. We mentioned this in previous meetings, but I just wanted to thank my council colleagues for taking the opportunity to have this special meeting on the 27th. So it gives everyone an opportunity, more opportunity to provide input. Our charter says we have to have a budget approved by June 1, so we pushed it out as far as we could to give staff time to work on the budget, city council more time to look at it, and more importantly, the community more time to look at it, so that we can hopefully make the right decisions.
Yeah, so we'll have more conversations on Thursday, and we'll keep working, and hopefully by the 27th, we'll be ready. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Going to move on now to presentation by AV Adventure Productions detailing the event's outcomes for the 3-year contract and future plans. Joanna.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pons, members of City Council. Back in the fall of 2022, the city issued an RFP for year-round event management services. At the conclusion of this bid process, AV Adventure Productions was awarded a 3-year contract for these services covering FY24, 25, and 26 from the city's Tourism Development Fund, all subject to annual appropriation by City Council. During its tenure, AV Adventure annually completed the following events: the Last Word Comedy Festival, Williamsburg Whiskey and Wine Weekend, BirdQuest, and the Virginia Cat Festival. For FY24, the Ampersand International Arts Festival, an existing and well-established event, was added to the contract using tourism-related ARPA funds, but has since continued under a separate contract. Today, AV Adventure founder Adam Stackhouse will present an overview of the events for the year-round event management services contract and the Ampersand Festival, even though it has its own contract, highlighting all of the event's growth, successes, and a path forward should City Council choose to renew the contract. As noted earlier, the contract renewal is on Thursday's regular meeting agenda, so without further ado, I will turn it over to Mr. Stackhouse.
Welcome, Mr. Stackhouse.
Hi, Mayor Pons, Vice Mayor Dent, council members, lovely to see you. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm here to talk about the past few years of our events and how they've changed and shaped and grown in the city. As Joanna mentioned, these are the 5 events I'm here to talk about today. The Last Word Comedy Festival, which is our winter event, the Ampersand International Arts Festival, which takes place in the spring, the Summer of Whiskey, the Williamsburg Whiskey and Wine Weekend, and our fall events, BirdQuest and the Virginia Cat Festival. First one's the Last Word Comedy Festival. We've completed this 3 times at this point. The most recent one was January 29 to February 1st of this year. The mission of this festival is to put on 4 days of comedy shows, workshops, and special events, including headliner acts and submission-based stand-up and improv comedy performances. We have seen wonderful growth in this over the past few years, and it's a real exciting thing. Here's posters of the past 3 years of all the different groups that have performed in the festival. This is a combination of headliner acts that bring in crowds and excitement that we identify and bring to the festival, along with submission-based acts who hear about the fest and they send in their own work, and then they get selected to participate in the fest. This year, we returned to the William & Mary Arts Complex, the first year of this festival. A lot of these came together in one rapid year of production, establishing all of these back in 2024. And in 2024, this festival took place in scattered locations throughout town, including the community building, some theaters on campus, Culture Cafe when it was around. And then last year, we moved into the William & Mary Arts Complex and had everything centralized in one building. And it made for a really exciting festival and a really great dynamic for our programming. We did that again this year. So we had multiple theaters running programming constantly, classrooms where we were able to do educational things, and we were able to expand everything we did as a result of this venue change. We've had a bunch of headliners over the years. This year, our headliners included probably the most famous improv comedy act in the world, Whose Line Is It Anyway, the television show. That cast came to town. That show sold out immediately when it went on sale several months before the festival, so we added a second show, and then that sold out immediately. But we've had also acts that appeal to specialists and people who work in comedy and who are learning comedy. You know, like down the bottom here, that's TJ and Dave. It's one of the most famous duo comedy acts for people who are into the field and performances. Another headliner performance this year that was real exciting was Bluebird Comedy, pictured in the top left, that include actors Tim Meadows and Matt Walsh, along with Mark Evan Jackson. This year we added a new initiative. Oh, here's just pictures. Yeah, this is this year. So you can see what they call Bluebird with Tim Meadows in the top left, along with the group in the top right, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Bottom left is a group out of Chicago with Laura Hall, who you may recognize that name from Whose Line, and her musical performances. And the bottom right is a group called My Best Friend Is Black, an award-winning sketch and stand-up group out of Chicago. We constantly are looking for ways to make the festival, even in its 3-year run so far, more exciting and more appealing, to bring in more people and more participation. This year we added a full-on educational program where we had instructors from different theaters come and teach applicants who came in from around the nation in an application-based process to join a school academy that they would then culminate in a performance opening for a headlining act. There's not a lot of things like this, and it was a pretty big deal to put this together, and we got a lot of positive feedback from it and intend to do it again going forward. Our big takeaways with Last Word are we've seen a lot of growth really quickly with this. Other festivals and theaters that don't have festivals are coming to Williamsburg to learn how to do their own programming. They're flying in, they're saying, how do you do this? What is the model? What is going on? And they're learning from us, and it's real exciting. We're able to attract these top-tier acts that we've had over the past few years, and that has only led to more communication and more connections for the future. People fly in from around the country. We've had performers from LA, New York, Chicago, and places all in between, kind of make this a destination. And it's really unique in that there's not a theater or performing arts venue that's hosting this with its own goals and agenda, so we're able to kind of bring all these other theater communities together and have them in this meeting ground that makes for a really exciting energy that you don't get at other similar events. The Ampersand International Arts Festival this year ran from March 16 to 22. Here's posters over the past 3 years. I have physical programs for these that I'm gonna have Joanna hand off at a later date. This is a big festival with over 50 events running for 7 days, and there's a lot going on, and it's kind of hard at the podium in a couple minutes to communicate the scope of it. So I hope you take a chance to kind of flip through the past 3 years and the journey we've been on, like growing the scope and facilitating this programming across all disciplines of arts. The festival has continued to embrace not only its origins as film, but live performance art, education, and programming across the whole city. The goal for this festival is a week-long arts fest, including special guests, film, theater, dance, author talks, visual arts, and a professional arts industry summit. It has been a real thrill putting this on, and over the past year, from this March, here are some of our guests from this March. Top left is Pulitzer Prize winning author Jennifer Egan did a talk. Top right is Leslie Baker, best known for playing Stanley on the hit comedy The Office. Bottom left is Sarah Jarosz, who just won her 6th Grammy. She performs with the band I'm With Her. And the bottom right is Cecily Strong, the longest-running female tenured cast member of Saturday Night Live. The festival's still a huge partnering event, bringing together town and gown relations. Like the handshake that happens between the city, William & Mary, and Colonial Williamsburg is always really exciting with this event, across venues, across programming, across partners, and it makes it something really special. This is a video that, over the next 3 minutes, will kind of give you a flavor of what went down this year.
I just don't want to leave where it feels like a divorce. I wanted to leave where it feels like a graduation. And I was like, I am going to stick with it until it feels like a graduation.
But I believe you actually are the longest tenured female cast member of Saturday Night Live ever, right?
So that's how long it took to feel like a graduation.
So we're going to be a live humor magazine, so you might see some cartoon. You might see some longer humor pieces. You might see some sort of character monologues. It's like reading a magazine without the burden of reading.
You realize that laughter and the ability to be there for people, even though we're not aware of it, we're not there with you physically, but we're able to help uplift, educate, motivate, comfort. That is such a gift, and if somebody comes up to me and says that, that is a gift that you're giving me, to say that what I'm doing has an impact.
You're probably thinking, okay, this lady is a comedy writer, she is a William & Mary grad, but is she qualified to give advice? And I just want to take a moment at the top of the show to let you know, just to say, I am not.
To me, the fun thing about it seemed to be having each story feel like it's part of a different book, have a different sort of vibe and tone, and yet have them all link up.
I would like to officially welcome you guys to the first ever poetry showcase through the Ampersand International Arts Festival. Can we get some snaps?
It was very important for my mom to approve of it because, this was a pretty heavy topic. But the fact that Linda Lavin played her, that was it. So she's so proud of it because of Linda.
I feel like in the room we rush so much with the dialogue. And you watch this, they're actually process and change tones and interact with the other actor. And I was like, that's how you were supposed to deliver that.
It was such a beautifully shot series, and that kind of really handheld, intimate style, I think helps us make it really organic and personal rather than a on sticks documentary.
And I believe that empathy is gonna save us all. And so I think both of these films are very full of the idea of having empathy for another person who's different from you. And that's the lasting legacy that I hope that it has.
So as you can see, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of venues, there's a lot of programming, there's a diverse amount of programming and things happening. It's kind of become what some call the William & Mary Homecoming for the Arts. We've just seen this annual return of people working in the arts and entertainment industry to come back, share what they've been doing, network, kind of grow, educate, and build each other up. And it's been really exciting to see that grow over the years, this continued wave of community across the city, Williamsburg, or William & Mary and Colonial Williamsburg. Our next one, the Williamsburg Whiskey and Wine Weekend. The mission of this one is 3 days of tasting, classes, tours, live music, and more at locations throughout the city of Williamsburg. So unlike the other events that we do where everybody goes to one place and they do one thing at one time, this is our decentralized festival where we work with restaurants and small businesses throughout the city to activate them and to get people in their doors with their specials related to the weekend theme. For example, this is coming up July 10th through 12th. Oh, here's examples of past events. So you can see here cocktail making classes, comedy events, wine education events, all kinds of things like that. This year, as of the 1st of May, when we sent this over, this is the lineup of local businesses that are in line for this year's programming. We expect this to grow. Every year, once people see who's invested and what things are happening, people kind of jump on it too. But this represents a bunch of different specials, live events, and things we're going to be putting in out there. We also work with Visit Williamsburg, especially on this one. Last year, for the second year, we did two big changes that we intend to continue here for year 3 coming up in July. The first is working with Visit Williamsburg to do an incentive-based program So last year, if you went to 3 different things throughout the city and you checked in on their digital app, you were able to redeem and get a pair of custom glasses from the weekend from our headquarters tent. That was very popular. We did more of that in a 72-hour window than I understand Visit Williamsburg has done with other month-long campaigns they do for seasonal stuff. The second thing we did was put a big branded tent right in the first square of Merchant Square. And that was great both for people just trying to find us and for people who were walking by the farmer's market or tourists. We had tourists pulling over their cars, just being like, in parking and being like, I saw the whiskey, I love it, what do you got? And it's really great to be able to have that big visual, and that was a big success. So we saw hundreds of people come through just to get information and then also get on that app. This year we're going to add a paper component to the Go Check Around Town thing. Some people wanted something a little more seamless than having to interact with the digital interface and put in their email to get a prize. So we're going to add a paper element where people can go and be a bit more analog. So if they show up downtown, they get the spiel from our staff, and then off they go to experience things throughout the city during that weekend. Going forward, we're going to continue working with more businesses and increasing the appeal of this as a thing, both for local businesses to participate in and for tourists local and out of town to come participate on. BurgQuest is our gaming festival. 3 days of board game and RPG free play panels, workshops, performances, guests, game demos, field trips, and game design workshops. You may be seeing in culture in general an increase in nerd-based, fantasy-based, gaming-based tourism and economy. That's where BurgQuest comes into play. We are doing a lot of things to continue to grow BurgQuest. Over the first year, it was in the Woodlands Convention Center, which I don't think anyone goes in anymore. Last year, we ended up, for venue reasons, in the Sadler Center during William and Mary's fall break, while the students were on break. This year, we are so excited to move into the Sports and Events Center. It'll be our first big event in that space, September 25 to 27. The amount of stuff going on to this is real exciting. It's the core of it is come and play games and hang out and learn from professionals and meet people you know from the internet. But we also take musical performances and educational demonstrations and professional game designers who teach at university and create all these opportunities for people to have a really full weekend that they want to engage in all the different programming. Submissions are open now for this year's event, which is in late September, and we put out a call and end up building all kinds of community with folks related to this programming. Here's examples of programming from last year's fest, from year 2 of BurgQuest at the Sadler Center. We partnered with a group called MagFest, that stands for Music and Gaming Festival. They started over 20 years ago with a con in Williamsburg that had about 300 people. Now they're annually at the Gaylord Resort in National Harbor, Maryland, where they host an annual conference that sells over 20,000 tickets for a 4-day video game music concert festival. We work with their leadership and have started we're the first people to do this. We work with their tabletop division and bring their board game library of 1,000 board games to town for free play. And as that partnership has continued, we've deepened it. So this year we're wandering into indie game designers and further leaning on their marketing. Just as while I'm here, their marketing is partnering with us to get increased height into their vendors and their long-established community base. So it's nice to have a partner event that's been around and has this kind of exposure and leverage to get our back entirely and be a core part of this event. We are very excited for the Sports and Events Center, new growth in programming. This really feels like the year that BurgQuest gets to spread its wings a little bit after going from venue to venue and now having this home. So we're very, very excited to do that. The Virginia Cat Festival is often talked about around town with smiles on people's faces. This is a celebration of all things feline. Special guests, film screenings, live performances, educational sessions, panel presentations, meet and greets, a vendor marketplace, cat adoptions, and more. The Cat Fest has been a highly successful event. It has gone viral in its first 2 years. This is year 3. Here's the example posters from year 1 and 2, and the third one is pointing at this year's event, which will take place November 7 and 8, again in the Greater Williamsburg Sports and Events Center. We're very excited to have this space because we have sold out of this event the past 2 years in the Williamsburg Lodge. And we hit capacity at 1,400 people this year, and it is very tough to turn people away at the door for fire reasons, people who drove from very far without buying tickets before they came to town. This year, we're very, very excited to be in a much bigger space that will accommodate the demand from both the programming side and the participation side. Here's some photos of things that happen. If you Google cat expert, the man in the bottom right corner comes up. His name's Jackson Galaxy, famous from Animal Planet and similar things. He was our keynote guest the first year and really brought a lot of reputation and a lot of things to kind of follow him. And over the years, we've had key folks, this is going to sound silly, I know, of the cat community worldwide kind of hone in on this as a very special event. When they do so, they recognize the unique nature of this being a city-backed project, and we don't have a bunch of corporate people telling us what the event has to look like. You don't have to come in and be forced to use a certain brand of kitty litter to come in and celebrate your brand of cats. We hear from our attendees and the people that work this event that that is unprecedented and completely unique and really brings a lot of credit, if you will, to this. We also partner with local nonprofit animal welfare organizations and donate a portion of ticket sales and 100% of raffle sales to these organizations to support animal welfare in the community. People travel from out of state to attend. They travel from all over. And we're really excited about where we're going. So thank you for the time. We're very, very proud of the work we do for the city and really appreciative that you all let us do it and that we're able to bring these things to town and create new exciting events and opportunities for folks both local and from afar. I'm happy to take any questions you have on this.
Well, Adam, thank you for your presentation, and thank you also for being a partner with us for a number of years now. You know, when we began this program, it was a goal of council to try to initiate signature events. And by all accounts, I think we've been able to do that together with you and AV Adventure, to create these things. Seemingly great, attendance and people coming from out of town. I know it's hard to track those numbers, but I know that you work with Visit Williamsburg and the Hotel Association to try to book those rooms and sell meals and those types of things. I think the only piece of advice I would give is related to the Comedy Fest. When they're trying to get advice on how to create this for themselves, don't give it to them.
Okay. Yeah. Just come here. Just come to us.
Come here.
Yeah. Well, what we get to say in those moments is we get to say, no, this is kind of special. And we get to talk about how it came to be in the conversations that we had, and then they're jealous and kind of hang their head, and we point them to the next thing there. But yeah, it's really, really unique, and we feel very lucky to be able to offer that to other people because of this. So thanks.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Adam, and appreciate the work you do, and as the mayor said, the partnership with the city to bring these events, and I think it's doing exactly what we envisioned when we started this discussion. But along those lines, so I know it's hard to track, but from your experience, which of these events do you think draws the most people from out of the Williamsburg area?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say it's more easy to say the ones that feel more local, like whiskey and wine feels very local. That is the kind of thing that you can get that fix within an hour of most places, right? So people aren't flying in for whiskey and wine. But people are coming from around the country for Last Word and Cat Festival and for Ampersand, especially alumni who make it a trip every year to come out from wherever they are. So, and BirdQuest is kind of a unique one that continues. You can feel the bubble get a bit bigger. Year one felt very hyper-local, and year two felt very North Carolina to DC. And we're very curious at what it's going to look like with the new space. But the ones that people are like, I'm booking a plane ticket now, are Last Word and the Cat Festival, and alumni who will always come back for Ampersand.
Okay, and then I know we're talking about successes, but when I was looking at your presentation in the packet, it did come to mind as oftentimes we see events run their course and you start to see a decline. So in your expertise, I know there's a lot of factors that go into that, but how do you determine where we would be looking at that list we started with in the beginning that was a long list to maybe replace one of the events with something either for just a change or we see one of the events starting to maybe not be as successful?
Sure, that's a great question. I think for us, given the last three have only happened twice, have only happened 2 years, and we feel real positive momentum on all of them, thankfully, right? And I think a bit of that is we continue to we're not happy kind of staying still. Like with the Comedy Festival, getting Whose Lines It Anyway in year 3 is a huge thing. And having now an academy that people are talking about, right? And that was a year 3 thing. So we try to keep these things that the thing is only getting better. So people want to return and participate in the new thing and it spreads. Ampersand has been around since 2011. We've been attached to it since 2016, and we have just continually changed that to make it appealing and keep that growth. Like originally it was a film festival, now it's film and live performing arts, and there's a lot more integration across education and a lot of aspects that people come to town to check out the programming. And due to the city support, we're able to bring in those headliner guests that are a key part of that. So I guess this is a bit to say that I think for us, looking at stepping back and what would be replacement time, it feels like year 2 for most things is a little quick to kind of call it because we feel so much momentum on the things. And I think back to that list, it feels like an eternity ago, some of the things on it. And the idea of like taking one, it's almost like I would have to reassess what was on there and be like, okay, it's 2026, what do these things mean now?
Right.
But I'm really happy with the selections that council made for the events that we did, because I think these have all kind of hooked different populations, communities, and are growing and building those communities and bring them to town in an exciting way. So I don't think there's anything yet that I'm worried about, but ask me in a year.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. In your presentation, you answered one of my questions, which was which ones really do we see people coming from elsewhere? Because that's what we're trying to do here. And when I went by the Cat Festival last time, it was like no one was from Williamsburg and that I spoke with. It was wild, and in the sense of like, you came here from Texas for this, all right, and so that's great. But just thinking about the all meowing karaoke. If you haven't seen it, I recommend checking it out. You have to see it to believe it, hear it to believe it. But my question is, in the different events, kind of putting Ampersand to the side, but the other 4, how would you say your marketing is changing or growing or responding now that things have started to get some legs? How are you sort of pushing the marketing in ways that you didn't know to do first, such that that return is, you hope, growing even more?
That's a great question. Putting Ampersand aside, because that is a different marketing beast, with these events, largely we've seen the biggest return for our buck on social media marketing, just straight up. When we do radio, we do print, we partner, we have connections with all the news organizations, we have kind of explored every avenue of marketing. But we have discovered that the biggest, how did you get here, how did you hear about it, is usually a friend or social media. And we've really kind of pushed everywhere. But we also still keep those other marketing forms because we feel they're important. There's folks who only get their news through the paper. We'll put big ads out at the Williamsburg outlet malls that'll sit there for months, and people will kind of gradually, and people are seeing these things because they're signing up for our email listservs or following our social media channels, and those are the primary ways. But I think the biggest takeaway over the past few years is more marketing via social media, as well as making sure that our current base of fans and followers are kept in the loop through email and socials.
And that's actually what I was thinking, because with the Cat Festival and BirdQuest and Last Word, what I think is smart about all this is that it has identified a community that exists, right? Some of them know each other and a lot of people don't, but you have a passion, like a shared passion. And so I was just wondering, are you really, making sure that the people who come, you're staying engaged with them throughout the year? Because it seems to me, and just by popping through these events the last few years, it seems so much of like a community of people that seem to, like, all the Cat people seem to know each other, right? Or all the comedy people seem to know each other. So making sure that you're not losing anyone from year to year, and keeping that, like, the snowballing of word of mouth or the community groups that are attracted to these events.
For sure. I do think it's almost alarming how much word of mouth actually works. I was in a comedy club in Chicago, one of the main comedy clubs, about like last July, and I was in the lobby and heard 2 people talking about a comedy festival, and I got my ear kind of perked up, and I was like, they were talking about East Coast, they were talking about how they were looking to apply, and I was like, can I just ask what festival you're talking about? And they're like, oh, Last Word, it's in Virginia, don't know if you heard of it. And I was like, yeah, I've heard of it, and just kind of wandered off. And I was like, it blew my mind that is a conversation that people are having in Chicago about like where to go with their Comedy Fest applications, And so I do think a lot of it, the nature of events and what people want out of events nowadays has also changed largely since the pandemic. It's a whole thing. And people want to be there for the collective experience. They want to be there for the idea of, to say, I was there, I took the picture, I experienced the thing, I met the person. And I think a lot of that comes through that word of mouth and that connection over social media and the internet and finding that out that way. We do get, for things like the Cat Fest, it is funny because it does feel like there are certain people who just like, that's their thing, that's their algorithm, that's their Facebook and Instagram is all cats all the time. And all of those people are aware, and then it's like, who do they bring with them? Yeah, I don't know if that fully answers the
No,
question.
it was more just like, I wanted to make sure that that intentionality of harnessing the potential power of how these events are designed around passion that people share and having them come from all over to this one thing. I think that's what makes these successful and have potential for success in the future.
Yeah, I mean, a good example of that, like Last Word, where like, how do we bring in both folks who are just casual comedy people and people who are just do this for a living and are into it? And that's exemplified by that 2026 lineup. Like, whose line is it anyway was a very intentional thing to be like, this is something people have heard of and will go to. And those tickets sold out before our main followers even got a chance to eat them up, right? So when we opened that second show, a lot of people who are fans of the festival and whatnot kind of were like, oh, we better jump on this. But at the same time, we also had enthusiast acts that we brought in that we managed to bring to Williamsburg that we were very proud about. And folks like, you got TJ and Dave, you have this group? Like, you brought My Best Friend Is Black from Chicago? And that gains us reputation as a leader in the comedy event space, if I'm able to say that.
Thank you for the presentation. I don't have too many questions. I will just say a couple comments. One is I'm proud of this council. Ayana, you weren't there yet, but for taking a chance. You know, we had a goal of trying to bring in entertainment options for this community and to reach out to groups that hadn't been represented before. And I think we did that. It's sort of ironic that the one that we sort of giggled about and thought, are we really going to have a cat festival, has been the most successful. And Stacy and I were there for cat karaoke, so yeah. But anyway, beside that, I think that having the Sports and Events Center as a venue will open up a lot of opportunities and allow those events that are held there to grow. And I haven't been in the building recently, but as beautiful as I've heard it is, and having the food options there, I think that both of those things are really going to help them grow. And one thing I remember you saying when we were at the Cat Festival the last time is people like to come in because it's a safe space, not both literally and sort of metaphysically, I guess, in terms of, you know, if you're a cat person, you want to be sure that you're accepted as being a cat person. But also the fact that it was the city that was representing it, so there weren't hidden agendas for, as you say, different companies or corporate. And I think that's important, and again, something that we should be proud of, that we're doing this as a city to expand offerings without feeling the need to try to get outside sponsors and corporate entities to help support it. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, there is a level of intentionality that come with when you do events that are this specific in nature, right? Instead of being like, I'm going to go watch the band that I haven't heard of that's playing, or I'm going to go, I know there's a comedian somewhere, right? When we're able to program to these level of specifics, people come and show up and embrace the intentionality of that programming in a way that you don't get with that kind of, what am I doing with my Friday night, right? And it leads to travel and hotel rooms and beds and planes, which is the point here. But it also creates community, and that's one thing that we're real proud about with these events, is they've built these safe, meaningful, inclusive communities surrounding these themes. And the Sports and Event Center is super exciting. We're the first contracted, I think we were the first contracted event for the building with BirdQuest, and we're also have been working with the leadership over there to really make sure that events is recognized in the Sports and Events name, and kind of carving out the path for what that's going to look like, not only for ourselves, but people to come after us and put non-sporting events in that space. kind of identifying the problems, the solutions, and building that infrastructure out. So it's an exciting thing and a cool place in the timeline for us to be doing it. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the information and for all the work that you and your team has done. And you actually just brought up a point that I wanted to highlight again, that I think most of the times with these events, we think of it as like in terms of programming, but it's so much more than that. It's the networking that goes on. It's the impact for our local economy. And, you know, that year after year investment of individuals coming from out of town to Williamsburg to attend maybe one event or, you know, multiple events a year. So thank you just for the time that you spend and for your teams to work on this as well. I did have a question following up to what was previously asked by Vice Mayor Dent. So I know we don't have much data already for the events, or specifically the 4 events that have only taken place like two times, but how many years will it take to have more quantifiable data for us to see kind of our return on investments for these events?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's going to be, each event kind of is its own different beast as far as what data that means, right? Like we can count heads, like the Comedy Festival this year, the attendance was 2,800 and change, right? But the way that is calculated and the heads that go to tickets is different than a Berg Quest where everybody gets one badge and kind of goes in the door and experiences as much or as little as they want. I think as far as when we'll have actionable things, there's some frustrations in some tight spots in regards to getting the information we need that we would be able to hand over a report that we're really excited about. Our increased partnership with Visit Williamsburg has been very helpful. There's been times that we've interacted with the city in regards to software that allows us to head count and see the differences in population downtown during our events and kind of see like, okay, no one's here. Here's the window of our thing. Okay, now there's 1,000 people milling about here. Those things have been super helpful. Visit Williamsburg partnerships have been helpful. Sometimes when you ask businesses at a local level to self-report on their changes for things like Whiskey Wine Event, you don't always get everyone doing the opportunity to kind of tell you if their revenue went up or their head counts. This is me rambling through to say, I think on the bigger events, we can kind of say, hey, here's hotel rooms that have moved. Our blocks have sold out when Williamsburg hotels partner with us. And that's always an easy metric to kind of point to. But the more small and local it gets, the little trickier in a lot of conversations and work it is just to find out if a local place that sells alcohol increased their revenue over a 3-day window because they're already on to the next thing, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense, and that kind of sparks some curiosity of maybe ways that, you know, us as a city can help quantify metrics with these events. They seem like they've been successful, you know, thus far, but just looking at long term as well. But thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'll keep Vice Mayor Dent's question in the back of my head. It's like, oh, if someone was to tag out on the sideline, who would it be? Because I mean, we're very invested in kind of head down on all these, and it is fun to also think about like, well, we want it to always be going up and getting better and increasing. So it's good to know.
Well, thank you. Appreciate all the hard work and looking forward to another successful year.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, leads us now into council communication. Does any member have any? Yeah. Well,
So I was just going to mention that we are in the midst of a banner week for Williamsburg. And we always talk about how special we are, and this is an opportunity to really celebrate that specialness. First, I'm going to go back to Saturday night for the symphony concert that was on the Palace Green, which was amazing. And only in Williamsburg can you have something like that. Tomorrow we have the police station opening at 11 o'clock, open to the public. And to me, it's a positive outcome for an investment that this council has made. And then on Friday, we have a banner day and a banner week with the Today Show here for the 3rd hour. Then we have graduation at William & Mary, and I say that only to let people realize there's going to be a lot of people in town, a lot of cars in town. And then we have the 5th Virginia Convention event on Dog Street, another opportunity for CW in action, another free opportunity with fireworks following. And then Sunday, we say goodbye to our swings. It's the last day that they're going to be here, and I just want people to be able to take advantage of these last few days after the rain subsides, to take a little swing on them. And again, a thank you to Joanna for all her hard work on taking care of bringing them to us. And then also to save the date, June 11th. We hope everyone who spoke in favor of the library today will come back on June the 11th when we hear from our vendor. And then the ribbon cutting of the Greater Williamsburg Sports and Events Center is scheduled for the 24th of June. And again, that's going to be a open, big party event for the entire community. So just wanted, a lot of things happening, and we tend to take it for granted living here, but hope people will come out and appreciate all that's happening for the 250th, but all that happens just because we're Williamsburg.
Well, I'll just want to also take a moment. June 16th is upon us coming up, and that's the deadline file for City Council, and I will not be seeking re-election. So after 16 years and 29 years on boards and commissions, I've decided to step back a little bit. So if anybody wants to run, now's your time. So I just wanted to let everybody know. All right.
Well, I would just like to say thank you for your leadership. We'll have many opportunities between now and the end of December, but since you brought this forward, we have been a better council and a better city because of you.
Thank you. I appreciate
having that. In your hand.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that.
Hand.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, we have in the agenda printed and online schedule of meetings coming up, so I hope you'll take an opportunity to read through those and participate where you feel that you want to. Now leads us to another open forum opportunity, which is opportunity for anybody to come forward and have something to say.
Carolyn Murphy, 221 Yorkshire Drive. I don't have any notes today, but I was hear all the angst about the new positions, and I have a couple of suggestions maybe that would help the citizens with new positions in your future budgets. I think it's important when departments come in with new positions to have, for one thing, an organizational chart. And a good example of that is if you go in and you look at the police station, there's no organizational chart. There's majors and lieutenants and sergeants and chiefs and assistant chiefs and patrolmen. And if you look under the patrolman in your budget, it says it has 32 patrolmen. But that's not true, because some of the other people in the department make up that patrolman number. And then on top of that, I think it's important that the department head justify those positions. In your budget this year, there was a one-page summary for 14 positions. That's not justification. We should have the departments come in and talk and do more than what they did at the work session. That was a start, and I think that's a start in the right direction. But justify why they need those positions, because from a public standpoint, we don't know. And until you have someone come in and say, I need this person because my workload is gone here, or I have to report this to somebody, or that you didn't have to do 5 years ago. The public doesn't know that. So I'm saying, I think you ought to have your department heads in the budget retreat or at a work session, justify those positions in the future, and I think that would help with your angst of 14 or 21 or 5 or 7 or whatever it is in the future. And the other question I had is, in the budget this time, there was, we were taking money out of reserves. Are we still removing money from reserves in this budget? And if we are, I think we should look at that carefully and see if we can do cuts to help reduce that amount being pulled out. And that's it, and I'll thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Sure. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll close the open forum, and I believe we have closed session, Mr. Vice Mayor.
I move to go into closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussing one personnel matter per subparagraph 1 concerning appointments to boards and commissions, and one legal matter per subparagraph 8 for the purpose of consultation on specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel concerning special events permits.
Second?
Okay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kern Chair?
Aye.
Okay, we will go into closed session and reconvene after that for adjournment. An open session.
I move to approve the certification of a closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia.
Second?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Oh, wait.
No.
And I move that we adjourn.
Oh.
Second.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Now we're adjourned.